Thank you very much for this talk on that very impressive project. You've done quite a number of things, starting from manual annotation text to all the issues to link data and all the technical problems. I would assume there are many aspects, problems people would like to talk. And before I start with my own questions, I'll give the opportunity to the audience. So, who wants to have first questions?
Okay, thank you. There's a lot to talk about, so I'll only just ask a couple of things now. I was probably going to ask the P word, which is when you're talking about linked data a lot at the end, that you're using Pleiades URIs, you have these connections to Perseus and Arachne, so I was kind of curious why you're not connected to Pelagios. Because that is the linked open data cloud for the ancient world.
It's true. The whole thing started from the question how to integrate two databases like Arachne and Perseus. And it is more, the discussion then during the project was more how can we do that in a way that other things then can be added. Because it is completely useful to have also projects like Pelagios and others, of course. And that's why we wanted to create a technical structure that will be open to things like that. That we didn't do this yet is really just a question of time. Because
it could be relatively simple, and then you have part of this linked
it's definitely data. True. Yeah, it's definitely true. Just to let you know, I mean, the Hellespont project was going on for 3 years, since October 2010 until this September. I'm out of the project. I was administrating everything until September. Now I'm not anymore there. What is still be done is implementing things so that our data that we worked, especially for the Hellespont project, will be visible online and useful. This is to be done until the end of this year or January. Hopefully we can complete everything until then, because then Karen will join another project, and Robert Kumar, who is also mentioned here, the first name, because he did the really first big part of the linked data interface, will be gone after the end of January. So it's really a thing day by day, what can we still do, what can we still reach. There are these discussions, this is useful, this is really important, like Pelagios is, and it's really a question of time if we will be able to do it until January. What is then to be done for following things is really completely open. This is our scope. It's really like that. Yeah.
What becomes of this? And to ask that in a slightly different way, I think there are a couple of issues. One is, who do you think the audience is for this? Who's going to be sustaining this as some kind of database? But within that, to unpack that just a little, it seems to be a really interesting balance you have between a lot of manual work, a lot of manual encoding, and also automated processes. So I was wondering, how scalable is this? Can you see this being applicable to other texts, and how, to what extent can you make some of these processes automated? And I was particularly curious about the bibliography. So it's a bit unfortunate that Matthias isn't here.
Yeah.
But thinking of, you mentioned pulling materials from JSTOR. I was wondering if you could also do stuff with Zotero, for example, and pulling bibliographical references from there too. So there are a couple of things that I'm asking now. I suppose one is, can this be scalable so you can make it more automated? And the second question is, who's this for? How is this going to be sustained?
I think for the processes that are already automatical, it will be much more easy to extend them also to other data sets, of course. It's true, be good to have Matteo here. I don't know too many things about his part of the work. He's still developing also. For the manual annotation, I remember a discussion I had since last year, maybe longer, with Francesco, how the named entity annotation could be automized in a way, and also the manual event annotation. This is really difficult in ancient Greek. There are other languages that are much more progressed in research on that, but still we had few ideas. I think this will be a completely new project to go on with other ancient sources, but this is also the sense of everything. I mean, what we did here is really a case study to show what can be done, and a following project should be based on the question, how can we now extend this annotation, the information we brought to the data, to the text, how can we extend them to much bigger parts of the ancient evidence, and which part of the information already, because we did many things on many levels and very fine-grained, and maybe it's not everything needed for all the evidence. But I think this will be really, again, a project for 2 or 3 years to find at least half automized ways to annotate things like we did here. Yeah.
Further questions? I would be interested to have some comments on the CIDOC CRM, because you have the I think the unique opportunity to, on the one hand, have an existing database or 2 existing databases, and struggling with mapping that to the CIDOC CRM, and then you used TUCDB, which is from scratch already designed according to CIDOC CRM. So you got both views and both ways of dealing with that. Yeah. And but one question would be is, if you decide to use CIDOC right from the starting point, and that's really the better way, or if there are restrictions and occurring other problems, then starting with the database which is free and map that afterwards. So which way is actually better for interoperability and exchange and modeling your data? So how is your feeling about that? Which way would you recommend for projects?
I think. Do you want to answer? I think it was really impressive to see how easy things have been finally once we had the ThucDB based on the original ontology of the CIDOC CRM. Because if you know what kind of data you want to have, you can, from the beginning, you can think about how you will want to call the tables for the database, and you can just model everything from the beginning, so that the really mapping in the end of the concrete data is really quick. I mean, we started. It was difficult to set up the ThucDB Karanos. It took us a year or something, together with many other things, but at least a year, maybe 1.5. Until
because I think maybe sometimes the data structure of the CIDOC CRM makes the table structure a little bit more complicated than it would usually be, because you always have to say, it has a time span, and then the time span is an object again, and it has properties, and these objects have properties again, and it's a little bit complicated. And for our case, it was really useful, of course, to have this ThucDB and to already have this in the CIDOC CRM. But I also think if you want to create a whole new database, you have to be aware of that. If you do it this way, you can only say things that are possible in the CIDOC CRM. And as we saw, like in the person table that we had, there are certain areas that are not really that suitable to CIDOC CRM. And
person in Arachne.
Yeah. Right.
You avoid things, avoid problems when you structure a free new database. So every seen person, maybe it's easier to use extensions, but one of the things we said when we done the Arachne mapping was we only use, we have this in discussion if you use any extension, but we have to say, and then we said no, we want to do this with the classical or CIDOC CRM with no extensions. Maybe it would be easier if you use extensions or make your own extensions for this, but this was also a question of would it work? So sure, it is easier to use a free new database, but the existing one, it also works. It's a lot of problems, or maybe some difficult things, but it works also for existing databases.
I have a second question actually about the language issue. I mean, you have Perseus is English and Arachne is German. Mm-hmm. And even though most of your work and encoding is done in English, I would assume, you still, especially when you showed the screenshots of the linked open data browser, you mingle German and English terms and categories, and I know that Arachne is slowly progressing into bilingual, multilingual issues. Mm-hmm. But was that still an issue for you, or how did you solve issues you occurred about English, German data sets?
It's still ongoing work at this point. There's lists of values for some categories, some tables we have that are similar both in Arachne and Perseus, and we try to match them. Mm-hmm. So it can be in both languages, the output afterwards, at least everything in English as well, if the original is German. So this is a way to find a solution for this. It's not so easy. We didn't finish this yet, and for other things we just decided to leave it also in German, since the entries in Arachne are done, the descriptions and everything are in German anyway. They are not translated. Arachne itself with the categories, with the tables, is translated, but not the concrete data. We decided to leave some of them just as they are for the moment.
Anyone else? No. I think that's a good point to start the informal discussion, to start with wine and the nibbles. Once again, thank you very much.